And get started. My name is Jessica Deegan. I'm the Director of Federal Affairs here at Minnesota Housing, and I'm also helping to stand up our COVID-19 Emergency Rental Assistance Program. So we're here today to do our due diligence training for the field partners. So first off, congratulations to you all, and thank you so much for applying to be a field partner for this program. Your commitment and experience for the work that we're doing is going to be very valuable to us really having an effective program and getting funds out the door and getting people help who need it. So we can move on to the next slide. So our mission at Minnesota Housing is that housing is the foundation for success. So we collaborate with individuals, communities, and partners to create, preserve, and finance housing that's affordable. Go to the next slide. Our agenda for today, again, welcome and congratulations. We'll go through all the due diligence materials that you'll be required to provide to us by next Wednesday afternoon. We'll talk about submissions and deadlines. We'll answer questions you may have. Please feel free to enter those into the chat. We are monitoring that. We'll pause at portions of the webinar to take your feedback audibly if possible. And then we'll talk about really what the role of the field partners are, another overview of the program to really talk about how, particularly if you were involved in the CHAP program, how that's different from the emergency rental assistance program that we're rolling out right now. Next slide, please. So let's start with due diligence items. So I'm going to walk through each of these in detail in a bit, but we're going to talk about your signed grant contract agreement that will be initiated from Minnesota Housing via DocuSign once all of your due diligence items have been submitted and approved. We'll talk about delegated signing authority, work plan and budget, DUNS number, a SWIFT vendor number, and a W-9, electronic funds transfer authorization form. That will be only for new grantees or if banking information has changed. So let's move on to the next slide and talk about our grant contract agreement. So we ask that you review the entire grant contract agreement and all exhibits to ensure accuracy and compliance. The electronic signing of contracts via DocuSign will be initiated by Minnesota Housing again once all those due diligence items have been approved. The contract will be sent to those individuals you identified that have the delegated assigning authority. Next slide, please. So the delegated signing authority, you must submit documentation of the delegated signing authority specifically outlining the persons authorized to execute the grant contract agreement. This documentation could be by board resolution, bylaws, or another organizational document. The grant contract agreement must then be signed by the person or persons indicated in the document submitted. Next slide, please. Work plan and budget. So as you noted in the selection letters, we have reduced grant amounts by a certain proportion for every organization. We've set a cap at $250,000 and have reduced everyone's. So we understand that those reductions in the plan that you submitted to us in the application will change, and that's okay. So we want your work plan to include changes with that new dollar amount, adjust all your budget allocations, and then program staff must approve and may request revisions prior to approving this item. So please allow enough time for this review when submitting. We will take a very thorough look at your work plan and budget. Next slide, please. There's a federal requirement, this is federal money, that we have a data universal numbering system number for each organization. DUNS number may be obtained for free from Dun & Bradstreet, but it may take 1 to 2 days. So consider that as you're going to seek that, perhaps do right away if you do not yet have a DUNS number. Keep in mind that DUNS numbers do need to be renewed every 3 years. So this number will be provided to us as part of that process. Let's move on to the next slide. In addition, you will need a SWIFT vendor number and a W-9. If you have not registered as a vendor with the state of Minnesota, this will need to be completed prior to receiving any payment. So do visit this website at mn.gov to complete the process. And we will send this presentation out after the meeting. You will submit your SWIFT vendor number and then submit a completed and signed copy of your W-9. Next slide, please. Electronic funds transfer form. So if you're a new grantee to us, or if you have had a change to your banking information, you must submit an EFT form that allows direct deposits of funds directly to your agency's financial institution. It's important to update this immediately if banking information changes. And again, this presentation will be sent out, and we do have links to the EFT authorization form and the bank change form. Next slide, please. So let's talk about submissions and deadlines. So you will submit all your due diligence items to mhfa.grants@state.mn.us. Please include in the subject line the project name, grantee names. Name all your documents that you're submitting with your grantee name and the due diligence item name. This will make it much easier for us to review those items that you're submitting very quickly and get back to you if we need additions or revisions or that sort of thing. So let's move on to the next slide. The deadline. So all items must be received and approved prior to the execution of a grant contract agreement. Reimbursement of expenses incurred prior to the execution of that grant contract are not allowed. So we have to have that grant contract in place before we're able to reimburse expenses. All items must be submitted to us by 4:30 p.m. next Wednesday, March 17th. If you have questions as you're going through your due diligence materials, you may direct those to mhfa.grants@state.mn.us. So let's move on to the next slide. And I know I went through all of this pretty quickly, so want to pause for a moment and take any questions you may have about due diligence items. You may enter that in the chat, or I believe we are able to have audio.
Yeah, Jessica, we have one question from Amber. Amber, I'll unmute you if you'd like to share your question.
Hi, yeah, my only question is, could we get these slides sent out if they haven't been already?
Yes, thank you. We will send out this slide deck right after this meeting.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions?
We have Angela Larson that'd like to, she's got her hand raised. So Angela, I'm gonna unmute your line for you. Go ahead, Angela.
Hi, I have one question about the due diligence items form where it lists the authorized representative and then also the authorized signer. Generally, when I think of authorized representative, I think of our executive director or people who are eligible to sign documents. Do you mean to have that person listed there also, or is that more like the program contact? You know, like the main grant manager?
I'm going to have to get back to you on that question. My sense is it's the grant manager, but I just want to be clear.
Okay, thanks.
Jessica, I can jump in if you'd like.
Thank you, Kim.
This is Kim Bailey. The authorized representative will be listed in the contract, and all program changes and formal communication would go to that person. So that person can be selected by your organization, whether that be your executive director or the program manager, whoever, but that's who we will formally communicate any specific grant changes or program information to.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, we have Jeanette on the line. Jeanette, I'm going to unmute you so you can speak. Oh, looks like she didn't raise her, she unraised her hand. How about Louise?
Yes, the SWIFT number would be consistent across the state, and I just want to ask Kim to confirm that for me.
Yes, that would be accurate. If you're already registered with another state agency, that number is consistent and would be the number you'd provide to us as well.
All right, and I also had added a question about the DUNS number, but you answered that in one of the slide decks, so I know what I need to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Sunny on the line. Sunny, I've unmuted you. You are self-muted, so you can unmute yourself if you'd like to speak.
Hi, this is Sunny. In the term of monthly meeting, monthly invoice should be pretty much submit electronic invoice as the monthly and in. And those documents need to be keep maintained or should be attachment with the invoice.
So the question's about what the monthly invoice will look like?
Yes.
Kim, do you know how our invoicing, we can talk.
Yeah, we might have to get back to folks on this when Jessica have some internal discussion around our expectations.
Yes, we will be back in touch. Thank you.
Okay.
And we have Jeanette. Jeanette, did you have a question? You're self-muted, so you can unmute yourself if you'd like to speak.
I do. In the award letter that went out, the dates indicated that it was March to December 2021, and in the contract it indicates that it's March to February 2022.
That's to allow for closeout, so
okay.
The expenses will be through December.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll just jump in too for clarity, Jessica. If you notice in your contract, there's a beginning date and then there's a contract period date that runs through December 31st of 2021. That is the final day that you can incur cost or expenses for the program. And then the final contract that goes through the February date allows for final reporting and invoicing to occur after that December 31st date. Does that help clarify?
That's perfect. Thank you.
We have no other hand raising. Meredith, did you want to look at some of the questions in the questions box?
Yeah, we had one come in wondering if our grantees could receive a list of other grantees so that they know which other communities are being served as they adjust their budgets.
That's a great question. I think along with this slide deck, we can send out that list.
Great, and I think that's the only questions currently in the chat box.
Great. Well, let's move on and talk about the overall program and our expectations. So our core principles and values for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program are that it's human-centered with strategies that are reaching those that might otherwise be left behind. And this might be geographic-based, ability, language, many other options. We have a value of anti-racist and race equity. We want to use intentional strategies to not perpetuate the conditions that create and maintain racial disparities. We want a customer experience that minimizes stress and uncertainty. We want transparency, timeless, and flexibility. And we want organizations by and for communities most impacted as critical partners for equitable outcomes. You can move to that next slide, please. So the field partner role in this program is twofold, but there are many bullets on this slide. It's to create program awareness and market the program, although the program itself will have a broader umbrella marketing and communications strategy. Program awareness at the field partner level will be for the specific populations and geographies that you're working with. Staff support to households to prepare and submit applications for assistance is paramount to this program. We know from the CHAP program that we need that on-the-ground support for individuals who may not have a successful application experience otherwise. So to help somebody navigate a complex government program and an online system with various uploads required and that sort of thing is really where your experience and work on the ground is going to be helpful for applicants who couldn't get to this program otherwise. Within that scope of work, it's providing culturally specific marketing and application assistance as is appropriate. Marketing materials and a toolkit will be provided by Minnesota Housing. We expect organizations to provide a language plan, including translation services for how you would work with multiple languages. We also expect multiple communications options by text, phone, mail, email. We'd also like in person as needed, if possible, which is why we asked about what your strategies would be for meeting in person in COVID times. We expect communication thoroughly with the other program partners in this program. So I mentioned we have a broad marketing and communication strategy. We also have a centralized intake. That centralized intake will be through 211 as it was with the CHAP program. They're not open yet for this program. We'll be launching all at the same time. 211 will be providing referrals to the field partner organizations as they will be providing kind of high-level application support themselves. If they are working with a client who calls in to help with an application and are finding they need more assistance than they can provide, they would be referring to this field partner network to provide that direct service. We have a central application process that you will be trained on to help applicants through that system. It's an online system developed by a company called Alita 360, and we do not have a test application to share with you yet, but as soon as we have that up and running and we begin training with the field partners, we'll walk you through how an application process works. We will have training materials and information on that. And of course, we'll also be working with program partners at Minnesota Housing. We will be hiring program staff to focus solely on the field partners beyond within that emergency rental assistance bucket. So you will have direct staff person point of contacts moving forward. Next slide, please. The households who are eligible to apply to this program, you must be a renter in Minnesota. Homeowners are not eligible. We have an income cap of 80% of area median income. This will be the area median income for the location you are at. So it will be metro areas and the non-metro counties. It's using the HUD AMI income limits. An applicant must have experienced financial hardship through the coronavirus outbreak, which it could include unemployment, and that sort of thing. They must demonstrate a risk of experiencing homelessness or housing instability. And then under the law, we must prioritize households who are no more than 50% of area median income or who have been unemployed for the last 90 days. So we're working out how that prioritization model will work, but it won't impact your work with clients in the field. This program does allow landlords to apply with the renter's consent and participation. So they will need a lot of information, income, and that sort of thing from their renter to be able to apply on their behalf. We anticipate there will be landlords who will have opportunity to apply with a batch using rent rolls or something like that. But those aren't the sort of organizations you may be working with. We envision field partners working more with direct tenants rather than landlords. However, there may be small landlords who would need assistance as well. Let's move on to the next slide. So eligible expenses in this program. Households are eligible for up to 12 months of total assistance, plus a 3-month extension if need continues, and we're working on what that need continues will look like. Those eligible expenses can be for past due rent back to March, although effectively April since it's March 13th, back to April, and we can provide future payments 3 months at a time, but we must resolve those past due rent arrears first. So we have rent, home energy, and utility costs that are eligible in this particular round. Mentioned that 12-month plus 3-month extension already. Rent for manufactured home lots and rented manufactured homes will be eligible. And we'll have a lot more details in our program guide that will provide you when that is completed to provide more nuanced information on this eligibility. You can go to the next slide, please. I believe there were 5 of the selected organizations who had noted in their application a potential collaboration with Americorps. And I believe all of you have heard from Americorps this morning as I sent them the list last night. So if you are intending to use Americorps members as part of your strategy in your work plan, you do need to connect directly with Serve Minnesota. Again, I believe they've contacted all of you now, so we can make that connection. They have 2 cohorts of Americorps volunteers available starting right away here in March 22nd, and then they have a second cohort beginning on June 6th. So connect with, if that's on your work plan, do connect with Americorps to move forward. And next slide. So high-level overview of kind of program and what we expect kind of on the ground operationally for field partners. Are there questions about the current status of the emergency rental assistance program? Do we have any?
Jessica, we had one question come in. What will the referral process look like from 211? Will they have guidelines about which field partners to refer to in which cases, or how will that happen?
We are envisioning field partners by sort of a referral by geography or culturally specific group or language access, that kind of thing. Working with 211 right now on building that out, and we anticipate we'll have a handoff that will be a phone call, perhaps to the voicemail, or your organization, where 211 would provide you details on a client. So we can still working with 211 on how they would want to do that referral process, so stay tuned.
We have Nicole. Nicole, I'm going to unmute your line.
Hey, so thanks so much. Super excited. One of the things we proposed, because this is a fast turnaround in our grant, so we're applying for Central Minnesota, which is just like a harder area to navigate than say the Metro, and we want to reach minority communities there, but we don't necessarily have we wouldn't have a gigantic number of people to reach. And so we were curious if there's going to be opportunities to partner with other agencies who've received this grant to help us with assistance for specific populations and how we would go about doing that. So for example, we really want to work with the Somali community, but it's probably better off if we work with, if there's another organization who got this grant or another organization working with you who already works specifically with the Somali community. We would love to work with them rather than reinventing the wheel for St. Cloud, which doesn't really have a super great infrastructure for supporting the Somali community.
I think what you're talking about a little bit is shared knowledge and that coordination and almost referrals within the network. Mm-hmm. That's what it sounds like. And I think we'll have, we're anticipating a weekly roundtable, maybe even bi-weekly as we get started, where all of the field partners can come together and share knowledge. But the same document that we're building out for 211 that lists kind of what everybody's doing, what populations they're serving, geographic areas, that kind of thing would be shared among the whole network. And I think that would be something that would be very helpful. And I see Joel, my colleague, has popped on screen. So Joel, do you have additional comments?
Oh, yes, just give me 1 second. I'm still trying to make everything work here. We've received that question in the past, and I think there's different levels of partnership that some folks are doing. Some organizations may want to partner with other organizations in their area that might have better connections to those populations. And in some cases, they're just sharing forms or they're sharing information, and that's a pretty light touch, high level partnership. There are other situations in which organizations are wanting to more formally partner with, you mentioned Somali organizations, St. Cloud Community, and in doing so, they're looking to also do revenue sharing in that case as well. We've seen some applications like provide a set fixed fee for each referral that another partner organization would refer to them to support, for example. Or if there's
That's actually us. That was one of our applications. But we would ideally, we would pay someone to do the services for us who would know Somali, for example. But we would also happily partner with something, sort of use a different model for that if we can find a more efficient way to do it, if that makes sense.
Yep, and so then I guess the quicker answer is we're happy to explore that with you. That's probably an offline question where we can dig deeper on it during this due diligence process. But know that we're very open to being as flexible as we can be given the legal and grant requirements that we have to follow. But we want to be supportive with you in partnering with others in your region.
We have another question from Shelley Rowe. Shelley?
Morning, how are you guys? Looking great. All right, two things. One is I love the last comment and I think it's amazing. And I love the idea that we're going to share everyone involved in this process because as I look and kind of build what we're going to do, I'd love to perform some pop-ups very language specific in certain buildings and certain areas of the state that will make sense and kind of allow families or tenants to be able to receive services in their own home language if possible. So I love that we're going to have some great communication going. My question to you is, in order to get onboarded or allow a family to utilize the CIRA project, if you will, it sounds like there's 4 ways to get in. One is through the landlord portal-ish. 2 would be referrals through 211, and then the next would be field partners. Is there an opportunity for a family to kind of apply by themselves online?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Shelley. Absolutely. I mean, our hope is many can go directly and apply online. And so our marketing materials and everything will direct people. Don't quote me on this. We have a URL. It's renthelpmn.org. So we'll have this sort of marketing campaign that will focus on getting people to that site where they'll have options to call 211 or, if they get in that way or get to field partners, but they could just directly go there, get into the application process themselves.
And so my next question in the process is with CHAP, there was identifiers such as an email or a phone number. And so I'm not sure what you guys have deemed as an identifier for the next phase here. And so sometimes some of the problems that we had was someone may apply through me and then maybe they applied on their own and then not necessarily for duplication problems, but more about how do we have the family get through the whole process. So I might have a complete file. So will there be someone on the other end kind of helping manage that to say, oh, look it, Susan Smith is applying through potentially Neighborhood House, but we have a shell of an application through 211 that no one's been able to get a hold of her. Does that make sense, or how could that possibly work?
The identifiers in the system will be a little bit different. We're still looking to have that ability to be able to track if somebody comes in with a second application, and it will be a combination of details from identification if they have it. By the way, identification isn't absolutely required in this program. Phone number, it'll be a combination of those pieces. I don't know offhand if there's I know there won't be a PIN. I know that was a big problem with CHAP, that there was a PIN that somebody had to remember. That won't be there. But so there are some back end pieces in the application to try to prevent that duplication of applications. Will we still see some attempts and some get through in that way that we'll have to kind of manage on the back end? Yes. I don't, with the system not up and running yet, it's hard to describe it in more detail yet, but that is something that's being considered, certainly.
Great, that sounds awesome. Oh, sorry, Joel.
Yeah, Shelley, I had no idea that there were problems under CHAP. I thought it was a perfect system that no one experienced anything.
Sorry.
So surprised to hear. I'm kidding. Yeah, I think that was one of the elements that we heard quite a bit of, the challenge of somebody starting an application in one space in the application process and then getting into the system again through a different place and not having the two connected. As Jessica said, the system's not running yet, so we don't know that for sure, but we do know that is one of the pieces that we've shared with the League of 360, that we want to be able to have that mitigated, or being able to track if they're trying to, an applicant is trying to get in a separate portal sort of way, not in a punitive sense at all, because people are just trying to get in however they can, so we get that. But again, from that point of, let's make sure that we aren't leaving applications open and having miscommunication out there. That was a huge thing that was shared with us, so we are trying to mitigate that with the new software.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm very excited.
Great.
Jessica, we had a question come in. When do you anticipate a training for the application and referral to occur?
It's to be determined. As I mentioned, we need to get that test application up and running. It will be in the next couple of weeks, but I don't have a date yet.
We have a question from Sunny. Sunny, go ahead and unmute your line to speak.
Hi, this is Sunny again. We are very excited for the program. As right now, we joining the state Minnesota COVID-19 with the media group of the state, and then we have some good model that we meet every 2 weeks and updates and what's going on and sharing the network. And then so the state provide us some information of the media information. So they sent us and they said, this is the way, this is the language. So we are the one in translate it out and post it out. So we use the same logo, we use but different language. So I think I like that concept too, that we don't want to talk different language, because I don't want them to come to Law Center and say something and go to another organization and say something. So we say the same thing. So I think that's a very good model that we use it. And then we can continue to, the state provide us on update every 2 weeks, what's going on with the COVID, what's going on with the vaccine. So, and we're sharing, and then after that, we're helping and support and who do what. And then it's kind of connecting, and then give out some body part who do it what. And then I think ongoing talk and going communication is the best way, because it kind of more urgent need in here, and then we need to say the same thing to our community. So anywhere they go, so they will get the same information, not just only go one place, get another information, come here, get another information. So I think that's a good tool. And then if you have team for the media team, that you can continue to come out, instead of us to create it out. So you said that this is the English version one, that you should say this one, and then after that, skip to us. And we have 5 partner organizations together, and we said, hey, Cambodia, Bhutan, Lao, Hmong, just translate in here, we prove it, and we send it out to community. And I think that's the best way of doing the work that we see. And then I would like to see if we would like to continue like that and have our staff meeting with the team with the Minnesota Housing team, and then keep update, keep new information, so we can be up to the date, and then inform community and who are doing what, and then where it is right now, what's struggling and what's need to be helped, and how many that we need to be more aggressive or working toward, because it is the time. So I would like to see that maybe for all these projects.
Thank you for those comments. I agree with the coordination being necessary and having those weekly roundtables with you all and having a direct contact with you as things change, as regulations change, as the application changes, anything that really impacts the work you all are doing. We need to be very effective in communicating that and having a back and forth comment. I do want to make a note about language that we're planning for translation of in the application and in that sort of broader marketing materials. So we'll have English, Spanish, Hmong, Somali, and in certain cases, Karen and Oromo as well. So those are the languages we're working on translation materials for. Those are the languages that the application will be translated in. So looking forward to feedback as we kind of work through that. And I think that's where that feedback loop will become important as we launch the program and get going.
Shelley, did you have a comment to make in regards to this conversation?
Yeah, I have another question, and I'm trying not to get too much into the minutia because I know you guys are still building things out. Do you have a projected target start date?
Our hope is by the end of the month.
Okay.
We have a question from Amber. Amber, would you like to unmute your line?
Absolutely, thanks. And I apologize if you did discuss this, but with the utilities, do we know which ones will be eligible? Will it be same as CHAP, like with propane, garbage, things like that, or is it primarily just going to be electricity and gas?
It'll be any tenant cost, any tenant paid utilities. You may have, so all of those things, I think we know propane was more of a homeowner piece, but I think we could see that in renters renting a single family home and that sort of thing. And so that will come into play. We are considering for utilities. So I think the gamut of all eligible utilities will make available. One thing I do want to note is that while we will have the opportunity to go prospective with our rent 3 months at a time, so we pay all their arrears, we can do 3 months prospective, we won't be doing prospective utilities at this time. Right now we're working on back utilities, and that may adjust as we work through the process a little bit more, but those details will be in the materials we put together. And I may have forgotten the second part of your question, Shelley.
Nope, I think that was all that I had with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
I thought I saw Michael with their hand up. Michael, I've unmuted your line if you'd like to talk. You're self-muted.
Okay, it shows I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Okay. So we were looking over our contract on our end, and it looks like the amount is just barely enough to run admin expenses. How are we going to help direct assistance if we barely have the cost to operate?
Perhaps we should talk offline and have a conversation. I think there are no there are no funds being passed through, so this
Okay.
it is all admin expenses, and it doesn't include any of the funding that goes to the tenant or landlord.
There you go. That's all I needed to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Yep, you're welcome.
Meredith, do you have any questions?
Yeah, we have a few that came in. One is, will field partners have access to the centralized application portal? And kind of adding on to that, will field partners be able to access and monitor the progress of an applicant's application in that portal?
Yes, thank you for that question. You will have access to the portal. You will have access to the portal to actually assist an application through that process as almost a proxy. If you're sitting next to somebody or talking to them on the phone, you will be able to help walk through. In addition, then you will have access to that system to check on status at any time. So the status of the application will be clear in that system. So, and again, this is something that 211 will be doing as well, is if folks do call back 211 and ask for status, they too will have access to that. So all partners in the program will kind of have access to that system, be able to do quick status pieces. You won't, we'll talk more about roles within the system as we kind of roll this out.
Great. Could you also address a little bit about the field partner role in assessing eligibility? Should they be assisting applicants filling out the application or kind of addressing eligibility questions before?
Well, the field partners won't be making a determination of eligibility. That will happen at a processing, central processing area. I think it will be helpful to know and understand the eligibility requirements as they're walking through. So having, an understanding of our program guide and of all the requirements to provide advice to an applicant is what we need. But they would not be actually making the determination that somebody is eligible or not. Just getting that successful application in the system. However, obviously we want to work with folks who are going to be successful in their application. And so there will be that, if you're working with somebody one-on-one, you'll learn about their eligibility and help them make an informed decision.
Great, thank you. Here's another question. It's been helpful in our work with other state agencies to have a Basecamp portal where we can find resources, check in with each other as providers, share resources, etc. Is this something that Minnesota Housing would consider?
Thanks for that question. So right now we're working with a processor who's doing some project management work for us and helping us with this part of the program as well. We just had a conversation in the hour before coming to this meeting on such a portal and where we would put documents. So I am working on that. I do agree that that's valuable. We will find a mechanism to do that.
Thanks, Jessica. Here's another question. Am I understanding it right that we can work with one family in need over 12 months, provided they qualify every 3 months?
Yes, but it's 12 months including back rent. And so some applicants may be coming in with 6 months of back rent, which then would put them already halfway into their eligibility. But so given that they could get 12 months of total assistance, and then you're right, every 3 months they would have to come back in to reapply, but if in certain circumstances we'll have to recertify their income as well.
And Jessica, if I can add on to that, just want to be really clear that these funds are not intended to be case management funds, right? So it's not like we're asking you field partners to work with families every day while they're receiving assistance. These funds are meant to help you assist the family in applying for the funds and getting for the funds. If there are additional needs that they have and they could benefit from case management, maybe you could help refer them elsewhere, but you are not expected, nor are you being paid to support them individually throughout the time of the program.
Thank you both. What communication materials will be provided and when?
In the works, and I don't have a time frame yet, within the next couple weeks. I will learn more and communicate out.
I think we've been having conversations with our communications director, who is the lead, and working with our outside marketing firm. And one of the things that we've shared with her is that we've asked for a time for that marketing firm to hear about the needs and possible sort of ideas that field partners have around what the agency's marketing work could be, so then that you wouldn't have to duplicate it down at your level. So I know that ask and request has been made to our director, but like Jessica said, we don't have that that date scheduled yet, though it sure seems like that's something that we should be getting at real soon.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Will eligibility criteria for applicants change with time? At one point, a gated process was discussed for rolling out the program.
Thank you. And I fully anticipate Treasury will issue additional guidance that could shift things. We are still doing a gated process. Our gate is that for the first, and again, we don't have a time period for how long this will go, but for the first phase of the program, only people who have back rent due are invited to apply. All eligible expenses, including prospective rent for those households, will be available to them, but we're inviting only people who have back rent to apply at the start of the program.
Thanks, Jessica. When do you anticipate customers being able to start using the system?
Again, that's a to be determined date. Again, we're targeting launching at the end of the month. We would obviously need some training time for organizations prior to that, but a date really is not set yet.
Thanks, Jessica. Is internet considered a utility?
We have made the determination we will not be pursuing internet at this phase. Treasury did issue some guidance that internet could be considered. We've decided that's not a policy priority of the agency right now and are not moving forward with it. But that is an example of something that could change in our program design over time where we may start to include it. Of course, we'll communicate any of those types of changes as they arise.
And of course, part of the rationale for having this field partners then is that for those households that don't have internet access or can't pay for it right now, that's part of the reason why you all are in place, so that you can support those households that don't have internet access.
Thank you. Here's a follow-up question on communications as it relates to budget revisions. Do you anticipate printed materials will be provided by Minnesota Housing?
Printed materials on the budget? Or
I think as they're looking to revise their budget based on award amount, do you anticipate providing printed materials for communication purposes?
Oh, I see.
Can I jump in, Jessica?
Yes, please.
Yeah, a couple things. One, like I think of materials in two different phases. One's there's like the marketing material, and then there's the material that you'll need for the program. Program material like forms and templates and things like that. One of the things that we learned under CHAP is that administrators really benefited from when Minnesota Housing could create a template and share that same template, and then it could be used across not only all people in their organization, but also across all partners, so that landlords or whoever it was on the outside would also be seeing the common template with the same logo, and that sort of was a sense of assuring those partners or landlords that it was a legitimate program. I can imagine us providing those kinds of templates. Now, I imagine it will be like a PDF or some kind of fillable PDF where if you need to make copies of it, you know, like physical copies, that will be part of your budget, but the template itself or creating it would probably be on us. Same kind of thing with the marketing material. We'll probably give you all sorts of templates, included like translated materials for maybe 3, 4, 5 of the core languages. But in terms of taking that template and printing them off, if you need, you know, 500 flyers or whatever it is, those are the kinds of costs that are going to be on your organization, but not necessarily the template creation or the translation services. Or they don't have to be, at least.
Great, thank you. Here's a question with a little bit of background. I'll go ahead and read it. We also applied to the Minneapolis Emergency Housing and plan to apply to the city emergency housing. In the proposal process, it looks like a similar, if not the same type of services as it relates to the navigation and application into the system. How will Minnesota Housing work with local government so we're all on the same page? For example, if our metro area of service is Hennepin and Ramsey County, and we get awarded through both Minneapolis and St. Paul cities for their programs, we want to be clear the application is not lost in the system.
Thank you for that question. That's a very good question. So there are 7 local governments and tribal entities that have received direct funding for the emergency rental assistance. The local jurisdictions are all in the metro: Anoka, Dakota, Hennepin, Ramsey, Washington, and the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And we are all aligning on the same application system. And so while you're navigating clients into that system, while whomever, City of Minneapolis or others are working with to do similar activities, we'll all go into the same system and be distributed among the partners and the funding kind of on the back end. So there's almost like, it will be branded in a way that it's not Minnesota Housing, it'll be Minnesota, and not really be specific to those local jurisdictions who are also in the online system. But we have shared with the local partners who are field partners for Minnesota Housing. I know they were interested in coordinating as best as they could.
Thanks, Jessica. Here's one more question. For the revision of our budget and work plan, should we have a start date of April? Looking for guidance on a start date when we know that there is still some planning in the works and things to work out. This will help us to revise our budget.
Since we don't have a date set for launch, I don't want to say April 1st yet. I think as soon as you are able to start that work, that's what your work plan should reflect. I think in the materials we had originally, it was a March 22 kind of get up and operational date. I think if you are able to be up and operational by the end of March for training, for those training purposes and to prep for that launch, I think that would be very useful. And again, we don't know exactly what the date of the launch is, so I don't want to push it out to say don't start a work plan until April 1st, when I think there is prep work and other kinds of activities that will likely occur prior to that.
Thanks, Jessica. There was one question that came in asking if any mortgages or homeowner costs would be included in this program. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to jump back. I was still processing that question and answer about the budget, because I know it's kind of a big task. We're asking all providers to revise their budget based on, their schedule based on a new budget and work plan, et cetera. So I really want to be like, I recognize that's a tough task. And Jessica, I think I was hearing you say that as soon as you can, as soon as an organization could get up and running, like get the staff on board and start thinking about the program and be available for training and start thinking about the marketing plan and developing that, that can start as soon as the contract begins, right? Or excuse me, as soon as the contract is fully executed. So if that can be done by next week, that's the green light for organizations to begin prepping and planning. Now, hopefully by next week, we'll also have more dates around when we think we're going to be offering trainings on this day, and here's where we think the marketing plan is going to come into be, et cetera. So maybe thinking of the March time, the month of March as really the ramp up, the training, the getting ready, and maybe thinking as April 1st as the first date in which they might be actually assisting families. Is that a fair way to think about it from at least a budgeting perspective?
Thanks, Joel, for that additional context. I think that is a fair way to think about that from a budgeting perspective.
Okay. And sorry to have interrupted you, Meredith. I just didn't want to let that question pass.
No problem. I think the question we're going to is if any homeownership costs, mortgage bills would be covered with these funds.
No, homeowners are not eligible for this program, only renters.
All right, thanks. And then we did get one more question asking if we could send out a list of grantees so that everyone can start collaborating.
We will send that out with the slide decks. I have a sheet prepared that we'll coordinate with what we send on.
All right, thank you. One more follow-up just came in about the homeownership cost. Is there anywhere where grantees could direct homeowners at this point for additional assistance?
Not at this point, but the House of Representatives passed a bill yesterday on the next funding round for stimulus. It's the American Rescue Plan Act. That funding included something called the Homeownership Assistance Fund that will be distributed to states that will provide those kind of costs for homeowners. So stay tuned on that, but there's nothing really presently.
There's nothing present within these funds that can assist homeowners, but a reminder that if any of you are FHPAP grantees or subrecipients, mortgage assistance is an eligible payment under that program. Or if you aren't a grantee or sub-grantee, you could refer your clients to those prevention resources. And if you're wondering who the FHPAP grantee or grantees are in your area, you can find that on our webpage under our grant programs, FHPAP, and we have a list of who all the providers are there.
Thanks. One more question came in. If we don't think someone is eligible, should we not have them fill out the application or let those determining eligibility decide that, even if we know they are over income?
Could you repeat that question?
Sure. If we don't think someone is eligible, should we not have them fill out the application or let those determining eligibility decide that, even if we know that they are over income?
I think it would be valuable as a navigating partner to help an applicant understand that they would not be eligible with their income. So I think we want successful applications, and so to the degree we can help applicants understand what they need to be successful so they are submitting a successful application, I think that would be helpful. So I don't think we would want to have you navigate somebody who you know would be denied. I think that would be difficult for both you and that client.
Jessica, I totally agree with you that's the main intent, and that's what we want folks to do. I think we also know that sometimes people in the field who are working directly with families have families who are adamant about wanting to apply and, well, I want to try it anyway. I don't think it's your job to tell them no or to stop them, right? It's your job to give them the very minimal criteria that does exist to determine eligibility. And if they still adamantly want to pursue that, right, families have a choice. They get to say, yeah, I want to go through the process, even though you're telling me that this, clear-cut criteria disqualifies me. So I'd say that absolutely the practice is to share with them and help them understand whether they're going to be eligible or not. And we certainly don't want to encourage them to do it if we think they won't. But if you're in the field and you're working with a family and they say, I absolutely want to try it, support the family, help, you might want to help them through the process just so that they have some, decision and choice for themselves.
Right. Thank you both. Also, will homeowners be allowed to apply for utility assistance?
No, homeowners will not be allowed to apply for any portion of this program.
All right, I think we've gotten through all the questions currently in the question box.
Thank
We
you.
have a couple people raising their hands, but we are close to out of time. We could probably go another 10 or 15 minutes if you're interested in that.
I think we talked about this before, and if we want to go till 11:15, we could probably do that. That will be our hard cutoff time. And if folks can't stay until then, we certainly understand that you can jump off. But as long as there's questions and we've got till 11:15, let's do it.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have Molly on the line. Molly, you can unmute yourself. Not getting you, Molly. I think you're muted.
I must have accidentally raised my hand. I didn't intentionally do that. Sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. No big deal. We'll just move on. Thank you. Shelley.
Perfect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Okay, so I'm so excited. So we complete the file. We're field partners helping families get their applications in and trying to obviously get everybody approved. So we submit it, it goes upwards. Let's just say that maybe they're denied because we didn't notice something or whatever reason. Will we as field partners be notified that the person's denied so we can work on other solutions with that family, or will the family only be notified of the solution?
Thanks for that question. Our anticipation and our wish is that field partners who are tagged in an application of helping that applicant through the process will be involved or included in all of the communications that are triggered through that process. So you would know then if they were approved or denied and that kind of thing.
Nice, I like that. And then secondary to that is if, again, and I know you're still building it and figuring it all out, for transparency purposes, I'm thinking back to the first question or one of the first questions I asked is, so say I'm trying to sign somebody up through the portal and they have a duplicate application somewhere in the portal. In Chap World, it wouldn't let us process, right? And then we'd kind of go to Housing Link and say, do you see this person anywhere? And then kind of match them to the agency, hopefully that they had originally applied with or ended up at. Would there be the option of, like, as a field partner, I'm starting to put your name in, your identifier pops up as, oh, this person already has a portal in there, already has an application pending. Is there an option that says, oh, it looks like they self-applied or looks like they're working with a 211 navigator or whatever the term is, or maybe Ramsey, you know, does that make sense, or a different agency? Or is that not allowed because in Chap it kind of wasn't very transparent when you're on this end of it?
I think some of that nuanced detail is to be determined on how that will work, and because I don't know yet, not having seen a test application that would include a tag of a partner that somebody's working with. I don't know, because an applicant will have a portal of their own and there will be applications within that portal. So I don't know if that tag happens at the application level or at the applicant level. I need to get into a little more detail on that, but I hear you that we need to somehow determine if somebody who comes to your organization for help may already be working with someone else. I think that's key for us to have that knowledge so we can share. So more to come on that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Amber, I see your hand raised. Thanks for hanging in there. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, super quick question. For those that we are assisting with doing their application online, do we need to be keeping files for them like we did with Chap, or do we not need to keep files for them since we're technically not making payments?
You will not need to keep detailed files on these clients. We'll have some reporting and intake requirements for the work you're doing with them, but you wouldn't be maintaining any of the, any of their income documentation or their detailed applicant details, any of the details of their application.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's all we have for hand raising questions.
One more question came into the question box. Oh, sorry, Joel. Do you want to go first?
No, let's do the question.
Will there be monitoring and auditing?
Thanks for that question. There will be some level of monitoring. It'll be a little different if say you were a CHAP administrator, it will look a little different than that, since this isn't a subrecipient relationship with the federal funds like it was with CHAP. So there will be some, we're working on what that plan looks like and we'll let you know.
Great. Any additional information on financial reconciliation that will be required?
So financial reconciliation will not be required in that way it was for CHAP, because we are not passing through the federal funds and we don't have to reconcile that. I mean, we will, however, reconcile your invoice to supporting documentation for payment.
Yeah, I mean, like just hearing some of the questions from folks, especially those who are CHAP administrators, you can totally, like their brain is still thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to collect all this paperwork. I'm going to have to approve applications. I'm going to have to make sure all their income is verified, right? Like you field partners will not be doing any of that information. That is all being done by this central processing center. We're really asking you field partners to do what you think you're best at and why you exist, which is to connect with people and help connect them and then connect them to this federal resource. One of the things that we learned on the CHAP program is that a lot of the administrators signed up thinking that they were going to help recruit people that they work with or populations that they're connected to and get them into CHAP. And what they found out is they didn't have any time to do any of that, like network building and connecting with their people, their populations, and bringing them into the system. So I hope what you're hearing loud and clear, you know, through these processes is that this Field Partners program is all about helping people connect to the system. It's not about processing applications at all. We're trying to, you know, pay you for what you guys do best, which is network and market in your targeted communities, and then assist those people to complete the application if they need it, right? A lot of people aren't going to need your help, and that's awesome. That's great. Point them to the website, let them go. But for those who do need help completing the process, then that's what we're asking you to do. Just help them. We aren't asking you to do any of the paperwork for it like was done under the CHAP program. So hopefully you're hearing a lot of the pain points that you may have experienced in CHAP. Hopefully you're hearing the ways this system was set up so that those kinds of pain points won't happen, or if they do, because some are just going to exist, that they're going to be as mitigated as possible.
I do have a question. Someone's hand is raised. Sharon, feel free to unmute your line and speak.
Oh, thank you. Are we going to be helping people upload documents that are needed? And then are we going to be able to track their application? Because they'll probably be calling us back to ask us for status and updates and are we going to have that ability to look at their application, see where there's any problems, you know, work it through until submission? Is that the expectation?
Thanks for that question, Sharon. Yes, that is the expectation. We would hope that to the extent a client would need help with those uploads, that you would be able to help with those uploads. And it is our anticipation and expectation of the system to allow a field partner who is getting into the system and helping that application step by step in the process, you know, really actually physically working with that application, that you would have that access to that particular application throughout the process. So you will be able to go in and know status. You could help to identify, you know, if there are issues during processing that they need different documentation and that sort of thing, a field partner tagged in that application would get copied on that correspondence.
Thank you.
Another question from Louise Perez.
Hi, I added it to the chat as well, but as we're submitting our monthly invoices, we require to attach all our support to those monthly invoices, the administrative aspect of it all.
Thanks for that question. We'll provide the details of what that documentation will need to look like, or to what degree of documentation we need. I don't have all those details for you right now.
Okay.
But noted the question, and we'll make sure to provide you exactly the sort of documentation we'll need.
Thank you.
And just, would it be safe to say that folks should think about having all of the supporting documentation in their files at the organization regardless, but what we might ask on a monthly basis is what we don't know yet.
Correct.
Okay.
We did have one more question come in it's in the same topic. I'm wondering how to report on how many people have been assisted or reached with outreach each month. So I think maybe that's still to come, but if you have a little more information on that, Jessica or Joel.
That is still to come, and we are creating, as part of that portal we talked about earlier, there will be an intake measure for, we'll have the reporting requirements to you, and you'll have an ability somewhere to go and import those. So to come on the details of what we'll ask for, but there will be a mechanism for you to be able to go in and enter that information. Any final questions?
There is one final one that just came in. Will we have the ability to run reports from the portal on those we've served?
To be determined.
Such a helpful answer, right?
I know, I'm sorry. When these things don't exist yet, it's hard to tell how they will pan out.
Jessica, maybe do we have a sense as to right, like a lot of the to be determined is because the system is not up and running yet, so we don't know what all the features are, and of course we'll probably be a phased in a little bit of approach as to what becomes available. But do we have a sense as to when that first round of the system might be open, or when some testing environments might be open to have some of these questions answered? Like, is that a week out? Is that 2 weeks out? 3 weeks out? Do we have any sort of estimation at this point?
My anticipation is sometime next week we will have a test environment up for people to look at and start training on, and then kind of, as that's up, developing training materials on it. So there are a lot of things that will happen at the same time as we get towards launch, but I'm hoping next week we'll have something to share.
So maybe it's safe to say within 2 weeks, a lot of these answers, a lot of these TBDs are going to be answered within a 2-week period. Might not be all perfect and final answers, but we're going to have a lot more responses to be given in that kind of time frame. No more questions coming in, Patty and Meredith?
We've had just a couple of comments come through. One was to please convey to the portal designers that it would be very helpful for us to export our applicant records if possible. And another request was to make monitoring requirements as easy as possible to allow as much time as possible for serving community members.
Thank you for both of those comments.
I think we've covered all of them then.
Well, great. Well, again, thank you, everyone. This is a really exciting part of this program. There's a lot going on as we've talked about, as Joel mentioned, we're in this state of getting everything up and running right now, so we don't have all the answers today. We're working on it, and we'll be in communication with you as these things start coming available, from communications materials to the test environment of the application to exactly how your role would work within that application system. They're in progress, and we'll have those details to you as soon as we can. But really excited. Again, thanks for applying. Thanks for being partners with us on this. We think this is going to be a really great opportunity to really help people on the ground get into the application who may not otherwise have access or ability to fill that out. So appreciate everybody's time today. Again, if you've got questions about your due diligence, or if you have general questions about the field partners, the sarah.mhfa@state.mn.us, you can reach out there, and our team can get back to you as soon as we can. So hope everybody has a great day, and we look forward to seeing your due diligence materials come in over the next week.